Hey guys, welcome to lesson 4 on module 3. And this is we're adding we're just adding fractions, and the sums of our fractions today are going to be between 1 and 2. And so let's just jump right in. Let's get started. We're going to use some of the same techniques as we had yesterday in lesson 3, and you guys shouldn't have no problems with this one. I'm hoping. We'll see. Let's start off with a question and just take a look at something here. If I have 1/3 and let's say I'm adding in 1/4, is my answer is it going to be bigger than or less than 1? And when you're looking at it, you should ask yourself, looking at each part specifically, is this bigger than a half? And think about benchmark fractions. Benchmark is a half, and 1/3. Is 1/3 bigger or smaller than a half? And if I take a look, if I draw myself a circle, or if I draw myself a rectangle, and I go ahead and I say, well, here's a half. 1/3. I got to divide that into here. The 1/2 is clearly bigger than the 1/3. So 1/3 is not bigger than a half. And 1/4 is not bigger than a half. Here's 1/4. That would be this little guy here. So I can tell that my answer on these, my sum is not going to be bigger than 1, right? Because both parts are less than a half. And if I take a less than a half and a less than a half and I put them together, I'm not going to have a whole. Well, then let's take a look at this one. 1/2 plus 3/4. And what I see when I do this one is I see that obviously this is 1/2. And 3/4 is definitely, 3/4 is definitely bigger than 1/2. So I'm guessing that when I put these things together, I'm going to have more than 1. Now when we're doing something like this, we can do the same thing that we've been doing, which is just drawing some boxes, and then taking one box for each part of the problem here, and 1/2 goes here, and 3/4 goes here. So I'm going to draw 3 lines to split it into fourths. This one I'm doing 1 of the halves, and over here I'm doing 3 of those halves. I need to be really specific and make sure I'm shading in the right areas here and know how many lines I'm drawing, otherwise I might mess myself up. And then I'll go ahead and do the same thing to the other one to make them so that we can add them together. Right now I can't just go ahead and throw those together because they're not the same size, but if I make them the same, if I give them a common denominator, I can do that. So I'm making this one into fourths and this one into halves. And the fractional unit of 1 here is going to be 1/8. And I can look at that in several different ways. I can look at that and say I have 2 groups of 4. I could look at that by counting things up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Either way, I'm dealing with eighths. Over here, I have 1, 2, 3, I have 4/8. And over here, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 eighths. And 4 and 6 is 10. So all told, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I have 10 eighths. Now 10 eighths is an improper fraction. 10 eighths, well, let's look at, if I fill this in, I take 2 of these, right? 1, 2, I take 2 eighths, and I'll put them here. A full 1 is going to be 8 eighths, right? 8 eighths. And if I did that, how many do I have left over here that I haven't used? I do have 2 eighths over there. 2 eighths left over, right? So this would be 8 eighths plus 2 eighths. That would be where I would be at. And 8 eighths I know is 1. So I can see I have 1 and 2 eighths. And that's my sum. Okay? So let's try another one. Let's do problem 2. That is 4/5 plus 1/2. Once again, looking at this, I can just estimate. I know that my sum is going to be greater than 1 because I have a half here. I definitely have more than a half here. So let's go ahead and box it up. This one here is I got to split it into fifths, so I'm going to draw 4 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to need to be careful on this one. And over here I'm going halves. Over here I have 1, 2, 3, and 4 that I shaded in, and over here is just 1. This represents 4/5, and this over here represents 1/2. And then I need to do the same thing, right? Opposite. I need to make some common denominators, so I need to make some common sizes, right? 4 lines going down here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So now they're the same size pieces, and I can add them together. How many? What's the fractional unit of just one of these pieces? Well, let's see. I know I have 2 groups of 5, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 2 groups of 5, so I have 10. So I'm dealing with tenths. And on this one, I know I have, I'm too short of 10, so I have 8, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I have 8. And over here I have one whole row, which I know is 5. And 8 and 5 is 13. And I have 13 tenths. Now how do I go about putting that as a mixed number? Expressing that as a mixed number, and what I do is, what is a whole? A whole is 10 tenths, right? And if I have 10 tenths, I'm 3 tenths short, so 10 tenths plus 3 tenths would equal my 13 tenths. And that 10 tenths is a 1, and that would leave me with 3 tenths left over, and my problem is done. So I have 1 and 3 tenths as my final solution. Okay. Let's do one more. Let's do one more. Let's try another one. Maybe we'll do 2 more. I was wrong. 2/3 plus 3/5. All right. Okay. Now, both of these have numerators that are greater than 1. So when we go about drawing our boxes, I'm going to make them just a little bit bigger. I'm going to want to be careful as to how I'm drawing. I want to be particular about this. Okay, so I have 2/3, so I'm going to split mine into thirds, and I have 2 of them. And here I have 3/5. Fifths. I'm going to draw 4 lines, and I have fifths 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I have 3 of them that I need to shade in. Okay, so here I have 3/5, 3 out of 5, and over here I have 2/3, 2 out of 3. Now if I do the same thing to both sides, right, I do this, and I do this, 4 lines. I have 1, 2, 3 rows of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3 rows of 5, well I know that's 15, so I'm dealing with 15ths. Here I have 2 whole rows of that, and I know that those 5 and 10. So here I have 10 15ths. And over here I have 3 rows of 3. So that's 3, 6, 9. When I add those 2 up, I have 19 15ths. A whole on this would be 15 15ths. And then I would have 4 15ths left over. And I know 15 15ths is 1, and I have my 4 15ths left over. So I have my sum. Okay. So I do have one more for you. And that'll be off. I have 3/8 plus 2/3. Nothing too fancy about this one. Kind of the same as what we've been dealing with. Both of the numerators are going to be greater than 1, so we have some good shading to do. And then this one is 8ths in our denominator, so we're going to have quite a few lines to draw. We're going to have to be careful with that. 8, if I'm splitting it up into 8ths, I need to draw 7 lines. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And over here, these are thirds. 1, 2. Here I have 3 of my 8ths colored in. And here I have, oh, you know what I did? I went went the wrong way on this one. Not that it matters. I could really go the other way when I do it, but it is nice to see to go the opposite way. 2/3. So I have 2/3 here. And I have 3/8 here. And if I were to do the same thing here, the opposite, so I would be going like this, and then here I would draw 7 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lines, and now I know that I have 7. I have 3 groups of, sorry, did I say 7? I meant 8. I know I have 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have 8, and I have 3 groups of 8. So 8, 16, 24. So we're dealing with 24ths here. That's the number of pieces we've cut these into so that we can add them. And I know that I have 3 groups of 3 here. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 24ths there. And over here I know I have 2 groups of my 8ths, so I have 16. Now I got to add those together. 16 plus 9 is 25. 25 24ths is what I'm left with. And I know that a whole would be 24 24ths. That would be a whole. And then I would have 1 24th left hanging out. And this would be 1 1/24. That's my sum. So when you're doing this, it's just kind of the same thing. We're just breaking them down, shading in maybe a little bit more. But what we're ending up with as we do this is we're ending up with this improper fraction. And so what we need to do, or the strategy that we've been doing here, is to realize what is a whole. And a whole would be, in this case, was 24 24ths. And then figuring out how many I have left would be 1 24th. And I have my whole as 1, and then I can add in the little extra that I have to give myself a mixed number in the end. I hope you guys are doing well on this. I hope this is positive for you. Please post any questions that you have. Please remember to be positive, be helpful, be kind. Life is way too short for us to be mean to each other. So go out and make a good impact and be a positive person, okay? Thanks. See you next time.